There's a truth I've never said out loud before, not in my book, not in any of my interviews, not even on this channel. It's a truth so uncomfortable, so shocking, and so deeply buried that for years, I didn't even admit it to myself. Everyone thinks they know why someone becomes an addict. They think it's about bad choices, peer pressure, curiosity, partying, or rebellion. But today, I'm telling you exactly what really caused my addiction, what really fueled my anxiety, what really pushed me over the edge, and why none of it started with drugs or alcohol. This is the shocking truth behind my entire story, the truth most people never figure out until it's too late. Everyone thinks my addiction began at 17 when I first tried weed, but that's not true. It began when I was just a kid, long before I ever touched a substance. My real first high wasn't a drug. It was the feeling of relief from an anxiety I had been carrying my entire childhood. I didn't grow up experimenting with things. I grew up terrified. I was terrified of loud noises, of being judged, of being abandoned. I was terrified of disappointing people, of making mistakes, of being seen. I was terrified of being different, being vulnerable, and most of all, of just being myself. I wasn't really a child. I was a nervous system stuck in survival mode. So here's the shocking truth. Drugs didn't create my anxiety. My anxiety created my addiction. The first time I ever used a substance, it didn't make me feel high. It made me feel normal. For the very first time in my life, my hands didn't shake, my chest didn't tighten. My thoughts didn't race, and my mind wasn't screaming at me. I didn't feel like I was dying. I didn't feel broken. And that's when the trap closed. Addiction didn't feel like a party to me. It felt like a cure. A dangerous, temporary cure. Yes, but it was the cure my brain had been begging for since I was a little kid. This is the shocking truth that mainstream conversations about addiction completely ignore. Most addicts aren't chasing pleasure, they're chasing safety. The substances didn't create my fear. They just silenced it, and that silence almost killed me. People always say sobriety is beautiful, and it is eventually, but the part nobody ever warns you about is this. Quitting exposed every single emotion I had buried for decades. All the childhood fear, all the panic, all the insecurities, all the loneliness and trauma and shame, it all came rushing back at once. Sobriety was not peaceful, it was violent. I wasn't healing. I was drowning. The anxiety after I quit was so intense it felt like a physical attack. I had chest pain, this electric sense of fear, deep depression, and a complete identity collapse. I couldn't sleep. I had panic attacks that felt like I was dying. Emotional flashbacks, overwhelming self-doubt, shame, and guilt were my new normal. The shocking truth is that quitting didn't fix me. Quitting forced me to finally meet all the broken parts of myself I'd been running from my entire life. Here's something doctors don't often tell you. When you spend years numbing your emotions, your brain actually loses the ability to regulate them naturally. So when you quit, you don't just go back to normal. You go into a free fall. Your nervous system wakes up like a child screaming after years of being silenced, and the shocking truth is this. Your anxiety after sobriety isn't a sign that you are broken. It's a sign that you're finally waking up. What feels like unbearable anxiety is really your brain just relearning how to feel again. The chaos is actually healing. It just hurts a lot. It's like a broken bone being set back in place, painful, but absolutely necessary. This brings me to the truth that most people never want to admit. I wasn't really addicted to drugs. I was addicted to escape. I was addicted to escaping fear, escaping pressure, escaping judgment. I was addicted to escaping my own mind, escaping childhood pain, and escaping the parts of myself I didn't understand. The substance was never the real addiction. The real addiction was relief, and here's the most shocking part. When the substances disappear, the need to escape doesn't. It stays, it waits, and it looks for new ways out. For me, it showed up as overthinking, avoidance, perfectionism, work addiction, emotional shutdown, toxic relationships, and a deep sense of self-hate. Addiction simply changes its form. Sobriety doesn't cure the need to escape, healing does. There was a moment, years after I quit, that changed everything. It wasn't when I left the substances behind. It wasn't when I rebuilt my life or found stability. It was the day I finally asked myself, what if the anxiety isn't the enemy? What if it's the message? What if the panic, the fear, the tension, the intrusive thoughts, and the dread were all just signals from the emotional wounds I never faced as a child? That's when everything shifted, because the shocking truth is this: your anxiety is not trying to destroy you. It's trying to wake you up. Every panic attack has a story, every fear has a root, every trigger has a history. The anxiety wasn't the problem. The anxiety was the messenger, and I had spent years just shooting the messenger. So, what finally healed me? It was a combination of things. First, understanding the root of my anxiety, the childhood fear, the emotional neglect, the unspoken trauma. Then it was nervous system regulation, things like breathing exercises, grounding techniques, having a solid routine, prioritizing sleep, and just slowing down. Therapy and medication were also crucial. Using them is not a sign of shame. It's a sign of survival. I learned acceptance, realizing not everything is meant to be controlled. I forgave myself, understanding I wasn't weak. I was just hurting. And finally, I rebuilt my identity. I'm not an addict. I'm not broken. I'm not anxious. I'm a warrior. The shocking truth is this: my addiction didn't start with drugs. It started with anxiety. It started with fear. It started with a nervous system that never felt safe. And my healing didn't start when I quit substances. It started when I finally understood why I used them in the first place. If you're struggling before using, if you're struggling after quitting, if you feel broken, lost, and terrified, please know you are not failing. You're waking up. Subscribe for more videos on anxiety, addiction recovery, trauma, and long-term healing. And remember, your anxiety is not a curse. It's your compass. Follow it, and it will lead you to the version of yourself you were always meant to become. Thank you for listening.